I remember one thing that was very informative to me, because I would say but we really have to think of what the audience expects and what they want. And he says, no, we have to do the opposite. We have to give them something they don't expect that we want.
Alright, let's talk about this scene. Now I know I'm late to the party here, and it's been the better part of a decade since this piece of modern art was released, but I promise this isn't just another video saying movie bad, subversion bad, rah, rah, rah. I am firmly in the camp of subversion good when used correctly, and the best way to use it is to approach it, for lack of a better term, humbly. In media, you, the writer, are being entrusted with the viewer's attention, with their engagement, and with their suspension of disbelief. When using subversion in your story, you are, in a sense, betraying that trust. And you have to treat this very carefully if you care about keeping your audience on your side. You want to say to your audience, hey, I know it looked like we were going that way, but we're actually going this way. I know this isn't what you were expecting, but trust me, it's going to be better this way. Just give it a chance. Good subversion doesn't push, it pulls. It doesn't shove you off a cliff, it invites you to take the leap with it. Now, most of the time, when subversion fails in writing, it's because of a lack of skill on the part of the writer. There's no malicious intent at play, just incompetence. The spirit is willing, but the pen is weak. And this is why I'm drawing the distinction between a poorly implemented attempt at subverting expectations and the much more evil practice of perverting expectations. This is perverting expectations. This goes well beyond simple subversion. This isn't just taking the story in a different direction than the one anticipated by the viewer. This is a head-on, high-speed collision with the writer's intent, and the vehicle is total. This scene is perverse in the way that it actively attempts to make the viewer feel bad for their investment in the story. It lectures the viewer about why they were wrong to expect the payoff that the story explicitly told them to expect, all the while twisting and contorting the story to fit this new outcome, whether it makes sense or not. There is no desire to tell a compelling story, there is only the desire to pervert. And this is where that other inflammatory word from the title of this video comes into play: bigotry. Now, this word is typically interpreted through certain socio-political lenses, but the definition I'm operating under for this context is the one from the Oxford Languages, which defines bigotry as prejudice against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group. Now, this may sound like dramatic language, and yes, it is, but it is accurate. Rian Johnson hates Star Wars fans, and that fact is crystal clear in the writing for this movie. And while there are dozens of examples to point to, the most egregious one is Luke tossing his lightsaber. Now, the reasons Luke would never treat this object this way are so blatantly obvious that I feel silly even having to go through them. Feels like I'm explaining why Raisin Bran Crunch is the best breakfast cereal. Everyone already knows that's true. But apparently not everyone understands this scene, so let's start at the top. This lightsaber is, if nothing else, an important historical artifact, an elegant weapon from a more civilized age. One might even argue it belongs in a museum. Luke would treat it with respect on this basis alone. And then there are the personal reasons Luke would find this object important. It belonged to his father, it was given to him by a close mentor, and it was lost some 30-odd years ago in the single most pivotal moment of Luke's entire life. Whatever's happened to him in the last 20 years, whatever so-called enlightenment he's achieved, or whatever depths of depression he's now wallowing in, the significance of this weapon to him would not change. If someone came up to me today and handed me my original Larry Boy Larry Mobile plane with detachable wheels and ejector seat that I got for Christmas of 2000, if I was suddenly handed this by some rando after not having seen it for over 20 years, I would have so many questions for that person. I would look over it and examine it to make sure it was actually mine. I would look for that specific scratch mark or that one chip in the wing, something only I would know about to make sure it really was the one. And the memories that would come flooding back as soon as I saw it. I mean, just seeing this toy now on this black and white pamphlet is causing this miserable old Grinch's heart to grow a few sizes, and that's for a toy. Luke Skywalker is holding in his hands what should be the most meaningful object to him in existence, and Rian knew that. Rian knew how impactful seeing this weapon should be to Luke, the history that it holds, the mystery around its sudden appearance. Rian knew, without a doubt, that no matter how many nephews Luke has thought about killing, he has to know why this moment would be important to Luke. But because Rian also knows that this moment would be important to us, the Star Wars fans, because he knows that we are invested in this story, that we want to see how Luke responds to seeing this again, he chose to take that moment and pervert it. And yes, this is perversion, not subversion. There are countless ways subversion could have been used here. He could have had Luke ignore it at first, refuse to engage with it, suspecting it to be some trick of the dark side. He could begin to interrogate Rey about who she is and where she came from. Or on the opposite end of the pendulum, he could have taken the lightsaber, hand shaking like we see in the version we got, but instead of his face turning sour and bitter, and instead of carelessly tossing the saber over his shoulder, he could begin to feel the weight of it in his hands, growing heavier and heavier. The weight of its significance, the weight of the hope that was placed on him when it was given to him, the light of the Jedi that it represents, and the pain of his failure on Cloud City, his immaturity and impulsiveness in that moment that compelled him to confront Vader before he was ready. The weight begins to be too much to bear, and he slowly allows the saber to fall to the grass with a dull thud. He walks away, not angrily, but solemnly, unable or unwilling to face the pain, but in doing so also abandoning, at least for the moment, the glimmer of hope that still remains. This is still incredibly subversive. This still takes the assumption of Luke being the hero, the one who will come and save the galaxy from the sinister First Order, and sets it on its head. It still allows you to explore a Luke who feels like he has failed his destiny, and who's struggling to find his identity outside of that destiny. This still allows for everything Rian wanted to do with Luke's character, so why did he choose this? Well, he chose this because to him, this moment isn't about Luke. This moment isn't about this moment. This moment is about Rian versus the audience. In this moment, Luke ceases to be a character and instead becomes a mouth. The mouth of Johnson. He becomes an instrument by which to scold the fans for being fans. Oh, what, you expected Luke to take this situation seriously? You expected him to behave like a human being in this moment? Oh, piss off. Luke isn't a human being anymore. He's a meta representation of the hubris of the Jedi. He's a sad, old, depressed, bitter, resentful man-child. Rian turned Luke into how he sees you, the Star Wars fans. And then he spent the next 100 minutes using this perverted parody to preach his bigoted perspective with about as much nuance as a nuclear explosion.
I told Brian this, it's no surprise. I said, I just fundamentally disagree with your concept of this character and how you use him. Now, having said that, I'll do everything within my power to realize your vision. Because, you know, it's not my character to decide.
I don't think he ever got to the point where he thought, okay, I understand why Luke has to go at the end of this.
I'm gonna make them sorry they ever came up with that idea.